Bombardier Krown reporting for duty. Let's look at the next targets.
Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let me.
Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Yes, my software is working right now, so I'm very happy about that. After so much trials and tribulations, looking like we're ready to go. Bombs away, baby, and get the day started with some good old cryptocurrency analysis and some traditional markets as well. As I do want to follow up on that, as I believe there are some pretty damn important things going on in the world right now, as you probably already know. Anyways, with all of that said, I think it's time for me to... Oh, yes, that's right. Say that Twitch will be on again today. Same time, same place, probably starting in a couple hours after this stream. Just need to eat some steak and do a little bit of small exercise, and then it's all engines go for some more Total War. Really looking forward to that, and of course looking at immediate price action during that time as well. Been really fun, and looking forward to it again today. The link's in the description below if you do want to join on in. Of course, we are looking at the Krown trading application, which can be found at app.krowntrader.net. It is free, so take advantage of it because, well, I find it quite valuable. You might as well. If not, then no opportunity cost lost except for the time. Anyways, time, the most important asset in all of our lives, perhaps. Anyways, looking at our metrics once again, we do see a decent enough change in the open interest going up to about 630 million. Still within the overall range, what we've been seeing, as Bitcoin kind of oscillates off the lows on this nice rally, going all the way from about 500 million to about 650 million. So this is par for the course as we're looking at right now, and does tie into the overall greater analysis, as it does suggest that we are still looking at the same piece of the pie, if you want to make that analogy right there. And I'm fucking hungry, so I would like a better analogy, piece of the steak, because, well, who can eat just half a steak? You need all of it plus more. Anyways, Jesus Christ, man, what's going on this morning? Too many cups of coffee, perhaps, as the bombs were let very loose, I'll tell you that. Anyways, what else we want to look at? Pretty much all other major metrics are more or less steady. Bitcoin dominance literally rock solid right there at 64%. We'll be looking at that perhaps today if everything else is quiet enough. Hopefully you can't hear the construction going on in the background right there. It's looking like they're redoing all the walls and all these apartments. So it is a little bit noisy for myself, but I don't believe it's coming through the microphone. At least I hope not. Anyways, please do let me know if that's the case, and I'll do my best to, I don't know, yell at them or something. Who knows? Anyways, fear and greed index still at a 22 right now. Again, more or less same as well. I do find that rather interesting, building a bullish case right there, as you would expect the fear and greed index to really be going up way past 50 back into the either neutral or even slightly greedy zone, as Bitcoin literally does a 2x off the lows. That's probably one of the better underlying market dynamics that makes me lean a little bit to the bullish side. However, I do have a lot of skepticism with going over to that side just yet, as we've been speaking about for the last like month and a half, I suppose. The levels still to be hit and still to be met have not been met, so I still hold on to biases that are still on the medium and higher term timeframes. And I really want to take a second here to remind myself to be very clear, because I don't think I do a good job of this, perhaps judging by some of the comments, of delineating between short-term timeframes, medium timeframes, and high and macro timeframes. All of those analyses can be contradictory to each other because they are different pieces of the whole puzzle. Again, short-term timeframes really only relates to the next day, this day, and maybe even the next day of price action. 1 to 3 days is what I'm looking for. Medium term, now we're talking about a week, couple weeks, something like that. Higher term is where we're talking about months out. And realistically, when we're talking about market cycles, those don't happen. They certainly don't fucking happen in a goddamn day, as some people would have you believe, or at least from some analysis that I do see, but they really happen over about a quarter of a year. So you really want to be judging that over 3 months. So realistically, the higher term time frame picture doesn't change all that often. It changes a couple times a year, and that probably to be true because Bitcoin is more or less trending very hard to one side just a couple times for the year as well. Then it spends about 3 months going sideways in a consolidation, and then either continuation or reversal phase. So with that said, in that in mind, let's go over to our good old price action and charts over here on TradingView. And starting off with CMEs actually today, still looking short term to me like it probably is going to give another try to the upside. I do believe that Bitcoin and all major markets are kind of operating together right now. We do see that Bitcoin, SPY, Indus, Dow Jones, all major markets across the world, plus even in a lesser capacity, commodities like gold and silver, all looking around the same. Although gold and silver, or sorry, not necessarily silver, but certainly gold is the one that's looking a little more interesting. And again, this is, you know, I'm not a huge gold fan. I don't own gold. I think it's a little bit silly, but as far as charts go, it does have one of the better ones if you are looking for that good old hedge, as they say. Anyways, looking at Bitcoin right here on CMEs, it does look to me like we probably are going to give another test back up towards right around this order block right here, similar to what we see on spot price action, but I think it's just a little bit more obvious on CMEs. Looking at momentum oscillators, we're still pointed north, although getting a little bit uncomfortable in this region, especially coming from the daily, as this has gotten a lot of highs in the past, going all the way back just from this region right on over here, going all the way back to essentially early May. That was literally before literally before this pullback right here. We can actually go through all of them right now, or actually I do need my trend lines on to accurately judge this, but this was, you know, in an overall uptrend, a pullback going all the way from about $9,000 to $7,500 right here. Then this point right over here, the next connection coming in right around about that $14,000 high, before $14,000 down to, well, you could say 9,500, or you could even say all the way down to realistically 5,000 down here. Fair enough. You know, just taking it one step at a time does still present some interesting thought processes here on the higher term timeframes. Then again, right on over here. Or sorry, no, not on this high, but on this high right here at about $12,000 on CMEs. Then once again, right on over here before this inevitable dooms drop, all the way from 10.5 to, well, you could say down around here. Even then, I'd still say that quick $2,000 move down to 8,500, probably good enough for me to be of concern. And once again, we are meeting this trend line coming up in this region relatively soon. Very, 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 very likely will hit it on the next tick. And anytime that we've really gotten into this more critical zone for the daily Stokes on CMEs, it has suggested that momentum is waning more or less. Now, I don't really, in traditional markets, I actually expect Stokes to kind of like stay up there doing strong trendy moves, and that certainly could happen. But for right now, that is the signature that we've been having for the last 2 years. So until it changes around formally, I wouldn't really adjust my own trading behaviors based upon that. Also, looking at it from a Fibonacci perspective, we do see that it is aligning pretty damn well with what we've been looking at. 382 coming in right around our bottom support, which on spot we do say is somewhere around, let's just call it between 70.50 and 7100. And this is, by the way, a bearish retracement. The 0.5 coming around 77.50, the next sort of upside short-term target, and the 618 coming in right around about 8400-ish region, also in line more or less with the gap coming in back from what was this, early March, about a little bit more than a month ago now. So all those levels aligning pretty damn nicely. And again, I should remind myself that this is a bearish retracement, so it would actually align with the higher term timeframes still having a bearish tint to them. And we'll go over the higher term timeframes, maybe not in super detail today. I really want to save that for the Sundays, because that's the time to really go deep into it. And I feel like maybe that's where I might get misheard sometimes, or maybe I don't express myself very well, as those don't really change around all that often. And realistically, Bitcoin has a lot of work to do before that even changes around here. Also, looking at just straight up trend lines, I'm not a huge fan of diagonals, but it is worth mentioning that we do have this narrative coming in down around here. This is on linear scale. I will put it on log as well, and it should be a little bit higher, as it should be more of less of a dramatic angle, coming in all the way right around the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement right around here. Now, I do have this trend line right here that is not really relevant to what we're talking about. I'm going to get rid of that one, a little bit more experimental than anything, but more importantly, with this diagonal trend line right here, I don't really care too much for diagonal trend lines, but if they do line up with horizontals, usually that is a damn good indication that it will be at the very least, a short-term pivot point. And what do you know, lining up with not just another horizontal, also the liquid zone breakout from what was it, late 2019, before this run from about 7,000 to 10,500, pretty damn nice move, and also meeting up with the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement. I do like that area more or less. And what do you know, the daily 55 on CMEs is hanging out right above there as well. So a lot of things meet up in this region, and I do think that Bitcoin is more or less going to get a try up around there. on the lower term timeframes. But what is the gatekeeper for that move? Well, it's more or less the same thing as yesterday. In fact, we have the same low term timeframe range as yesterday. And now I'm sure everyone's kind of creaming their pants, or all the boo laws are creaming their pants. This does seem to be an ascending triangle being formed here on the lower term timeframes. More importantly to me, we do see that the golden cross moving averages for the 4 hour are getting very, 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 very close. So this offers up two major scenarios as far as I see it. First and foremost, if we do break above 7,400, just as we said yesterday, or maybe even using the 377 as a little bit more of a conservative estimate on a 4 hour total closure. Let me make sure that I'm recording. I am recording. Microphone's working. Good, great, awesome, good. Oh, and it's nice and dark in here too, so the lights look absolutely phenomenal. Oh, I love it, man. Just like a strip club. Anyways, if Bitcoin does close above this region on a 4 hour total closure, I would look for I would look for that next move up towards around 7750-ish region, which is going to be in line with this blue box right in over here. I do have it starting at about 7750, going all the way up to 7950. Anywhere within this region is good. You never know where liquidations take you. But more importantly, if we do take out this guy to the upside, if that confirmation does happen, then I would look for the golden cross to inevitably happen. In fact, the longer that Bitcoin just stays above essentially 7100, the more and more close that these will inevitably get. I mean, it's just the way that moving averages work. We had a really good discussion on Twitch yesterday about the relevancy of moving averages, and it really caused me to have to think, because to explain it in the most basic terms, we have to go down, and this is not to sound condescending, but you have to understand the basics of it in order to understand why it's relevant. But in order to go down to like the most simple of simple levels, I think breaking it down to just understanding that it's a fucking average and looking at trend from a long-term perspective, that's a pretty damn solid mathematical way of getting it. Anyways, I'm getting way off topic right now. Jesus Christ, man. So as long as Bitcoin remains above this region right here, it will happen. Now, a lot of the time when you do see a major cross like this in the works, and the 4 hours kind of like the lowest time frame that I've found in cryptocurrency land, not related to other markets, but in cryptocurrency land, that does seem to hold a bunch of weight with price action, as we can show in just a second here. You get one of two major scenarios. You either get a big bad breakout, which will show past behavior, or you get a big bad fake out right before they kiss. So what's happening here from a more, algo perspective is a lot of the time the more sophisticated bots and algos of the market will try to bait other less sophisticated bots and algos who don't have the best programming, or maybe just don't understand markets as well. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're new or whatever. Who knows? But they'll try to bait them into getting a position on the opposite side. So in this case, what could happen is you do present the illusion of a golden cross, and the more aggressive, I would call them less sophisticated bots, will not wait for that to be confirmed, or maybe even take a little bit more of a of a preliminary position, and then right at the last second you'll see a massive attack, with a quick wick up, then close major down. The cross will just be kissing each other, and then the inevitable dooms drop happens right after that. We can look at a few examples of this in the past, and I do think that this is very much of relevance here, just because I do actually think that Bitcoin could very easily have a spike up, close down, and that would be a very, 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 very good indication of an actual trade, at least in my opinion. Of course, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but looking at the past behavior, we do see a death cross running over here. That took Bitcoin all the way essentially from 9,400 all the way, you could say all the way down here. But even then, just the more conservative way of looking at this, all the way from about 9,450 on this pump up right here down to about 7,700ish region. So a nice move nonetheless. Before that, I want to find a few of the fake outs. Of course, this one was not a fake out. Golden cross, perfect, very, 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 very good cross right in over here. In fact, this one, I do think similar to what we're looking at right here. So there is a good potential that this actually does complete itself. Death cross running over here, no fake out. Give me a fake out, motherfucker. Jesus Christ. This one over here, no fake out as well. Although a lackluster response, I'd say that this one was more of a failure, even though from next test to the 55 to next high was a 7.5% move. Those past examples should show you what's more so on the menu as far as that goes. Okay, now we get to our first fake out right here. So Bitcoin gets the death cross running over here, spends a little bit of time chopping around, but inevitably comes down. Then to the untrained eye, it might look like it actually has a fake cross right here. However, it does not. Right at the last second, right at the very last second, when Bitcoin was about to get a golden cross, meaning the green 55 cross the upside of the purple 200, the inevitable dooms drop happens and they kiss, but no cross, no confirmation. And after that, it slowly but surely gains more and more divergence away from each other, saying that the market is slowly but surely turning to the sell side, especially on the more powerful bots and algos, and then, well, whee, all the way down. Jesus Christ, man, that's loud as fuck outside. I need to close the window. You can certainly hear that. I'll just be 1 second here. I do apologize. Oh, fuck. I can't actually walk over there because my lower half is naked, so you'll see my pee-pee. All right, well, you know what? Just gonna have to deal with it. As I don't have any pants here. All right, well, whatever. That would have been really funny if I didn't realize that one, but I'm on the ball today because I had enough coffee. Probably not. Anyways, looking at it before then, a couple of good examples right here. Again, not, the pristine example that you really expect. Jesus Christ, they have fucking like those things that you drill in the ground. Like, what are they doing? What are they doing? God damn it, man. Anyways, even on these failures, counter to the overall trend, these do get some nice airtime from signal given to next high. This one's a 15.25% move, pretty damn nice. This one over here, not the picture perfect, but does get a nice 13% move to the downside as well. And then we have to go back to really 2014, 2015 to get the next set of kind of failures. But looking at this guy running over here, coming from the last breakout, this golden cross led us all the way from 3,600 to 14,000, right? Anyways, going to 2018, we have several examples of getting the golden cross in counter to the macro trends. So the macro trend here, obviously to the downside, we see lower lows, lower highs. Well, more or less, the lows are kind of consistent, but lower highs are the name of the game. So that's good enough for me. And we do have several examples here. So even on these failures of crosses, and by the way, before we get into that, there's several examples here where it hints at a golden cross many times. No cross is actually confirmed, and then dooms drop happens. So even in these examples here of the counter to the macro trend, we actually do get some nice moves to the upside. Although they all do inevitably fail. This one about almost 10%. This one over here from signal given, not even hindsight trading this, but like getting this at a worse price point, still 16.5% to the upside, pretty damn good. This one over here, again, same thing. I'm not going to make excuses for it, but even with a late entry, 20% to the upside. This one right in over here. Now we actually do have a little bit of a fake out. In fact, our first real example of one, this one giving you about 13.5% move to the upside. This one over here, this one actually does almost confirm to the upside, but then comes back down and then pops back up. That one is actually the one good example of what I'm saying not being right. However, one example out of several is an outlier as far as I'm concerned. Looking at it back on over here, same thing. Takes us all the way down from this price point to our next major low, which is about 6% move. Well, that's obviously an outlier as well. So realistically, counter to the overall macro trend, if we were to get a golden cross here, I would still look for Bitcoin to at the very least get in line with what we've seen on the prior ones as well, because we are still in a macro downtrend right here. We are in a macro downtrend as long as we are closing, especially weeklies. But well, the problem with the weekly right now is that we're technically in a downtrend as long as we are making lower lows and lower highs. At what point do we make a higher high? Well, back above 10,100. So Bitcoin could technically rally all the way back up there, and the higher term timeframes would not have officially switched around to an upwards trend. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't get bullish before that price point, but it does put perspective in place that we're dealing with big numbers, and when we're dealing with big numbers, it's very seductive to see, quite literally a 2x off the lows that we've already seen, but perspective is the trend is still down, and it's still very well shift around. So as far as real trading goes, there's still a lot to be done. Doesn't mean that you can't make money to the upside right here. In fact, bulls have been making money, for the last month and a half pretty damn nicely. But perspective once again. So looking at the 4 hour, if we were to get that golden cross, assuming that this does not turn into a fake out, let's just play around with numbers and see where we're adding, about 10% from this signal next given to the next high would be. And what do you fucking know? It's right around 7,900, which if I could remind myself to remind you, well, that's literally right in the back end of this blue box territory. Also meeting up with this ascending trend line right here. Also meeting up with, if we were to throw a Fibonacci on it, as we showed before, that would be the, which one was it? Let's go back to CMEs. That'd be the that would be, around the 618. Of course, on spot, it's going to be a little bit lower numbers as there is a premium on them right now, but more or less the same idea there, and the premium should go up as well. Not only that, but as you can see, the outline of this would be right around the purple 200x benchmark average on the daily. So a lot of things within this region. That does make me very, 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 very skeptical of any sort of a move up into that region. Not only that, but Bitcoin does have a damn good history of being allergic to the white 200 simple and to a lesser extent the purple 200x benchmark average on the daily during these long-term downtrends. Back to 2018, very, very similar, and for by the same token to the upside as well. Great buy points over here, great sell points. Once we get wrangled below it right here, reject 1, reject 2, reject 3, reject 4, 5, and then it gets more aggressive towards the 200x benchmark average as as it would imply. So again, if Bitcoin did hit into that region, I do think that area is of interest here. So while I am looking for some short-term upside, to be very deliberately clear, because perhaps I've been being misheard on this for the last couple of weeks, because I actually have been bullish ever since this up right here, especially from 6,000 or 5,900ish region. It's time to be a little bit more reserved as far as, at least in my opinion, as far as playing the upside. But until that price point happens, I do think that Bitcoin can trade a little bit sideways here, and that's more or less okay. And the only way that I really get short-term bearish is if Bitcoin does the same thing that we spoke about yesterday. If it breaks below this blue box territory at the very least, that's $7,000 on the more conservative end, $7,100 on the more aggressive end, on at the very least a 4-hour total time frame. As you'll notice, that will also very naturally be lining up with the purple 200x benchmark average right here, probably sometime later today, as it does kind of crawl its way up there. So if Bitcoin did come back down below here and really close a girthy red dildo below, that would be a damn good indication that this will turn into a fake out, very, very likely, and we will come back down at the very least rather quickly into the $6,600 to $6,700 range. Another $300, $400 move, again at a $600 price point. That's a more than 5% move, which is very much tradable. Again, we're focused on trading here, not fucking moon boys and doom boys. That's a whole nother conversation, which I don't really want to get into because Jesus fucking Christ, man. It's like the lowest common denominator. Oh, God. Anyways, people still saying that Bitcoin's a hedge, looking at just year-to-date price action. Why don't you take it from the last fucking high, huh? How about that? How about that, man? How about that? Just very, 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 very cherry-picking of data. Anyways, I won't get into that right now. If you want the information, or sorry, if you want my take on the long-term correlations, go check out my Twitter thread. I should probably actually pin that, maybe. Anyways. Now, if Bitcoin did actually hit down below into this blue box, not the 7,000 one, but the 6,600 to 6,700 region right here, that would also be in line with breaking, like, motherfucker. That's not what I meant to do. Let's go back there. Nice one. That would be in line with this trend line right here. That's been governing all of our, motherfucker, I did it again. And why is this not lining up? I must have done this on a different time frame. I think it's on a 2-hour actually. Yeah, something like that. It should even be a little bit more aggressive too. Okay, can you not do this time? Maybe? Yes, motherfucker, I got you now. In fact, this one's actually coming up more aggressively now, so maybe I should be flipping that around. As you can see, this rising trend line has been getting all of our lows ever since essentially March 12th, March 13th dump right here, low at 42.50, which does imply that we are still within the confines of this as, do you want to call it a rising channel? Do you want to call it a bear flag? Do you want to call it a rising wedge? I'd say it's more of a channel than a wedge, but overall the same implication is made that that is a redistribution pattern. And with the volume signature going, steadily declining from left to right here, that is so fucking obnoxious outside. I do apologize. But with a steadily declining volume signature going from left to right here, that would suggest that this is again one piece of the pie. If we go back to our open interest chart, we do remember that this has been oscillating just between 500 million as a base and 650 million as as the upper range of that bound. So as long as we're kind of caught within that, it does suggest that we are still playing out the same move. And if this is the same move, then my first interpretation of it would be a rising channel. Funny thing about this is that the rising channel, especially if we look at it from like a higher term time frame perspective, I think a 4-hour probably gets it. Something like this, going to have a more aggressive trend line here. This is obviously more of a wedge as well. We do see that the top side resistance of this comes right in line with the blue box as well. So it's really not until Bitcoin gets above this region on the, on like a daily maybe, where I even get excited for a move, probably towards 9,000, maybe even $10,000. That's where things start to really look more interesting. Still would have to be aware of the essentially $10,000 number, but that's a $1,500 move. I mean, that's very, very tradable as well. So I just want to kind of outline the overall, the overall areas of interest here. And then, of course, there would be a measured move on this formation as well, which if we did break down, now it'd actually be much higher. So it'd actually be pointing down towards 5150-ish region, not 4850. The longer that Bitcoin stays within the bounds of this, the higher that the measured move actually does go. So it won't go as low. So Bitcoin may not be making a new low. In fact, the low might actually be in, although you'd want to see what happens after that and then rejudge if need be. But at the very least, that would be perhaps a more comforting thought. For some out there, there would very likely be bounces along the way if we did break to the downside. Of course, 6,200 an area of interest, 5,900 an area of interest, 5,600 an area of interest, also the 200 simple on the weekly, and then of course the full on measure move all the way down to 5,150. If after that you'd want to come back and reassess and judge. Okay, are we coming down here? Are we coming down here? Or is a low in? That's a conversation for another time now. But I should say that now that Bitcoin's really held its own for the last month and a half, just crawling its way up along here, I do think that's a more comforting thought that the implied move would be not as low. So Bitcoin's resiliency is does set it up for a greater does set it up better over the long term, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, cool. So we spoke about the lower term time frames. Let's go look at lower term time frame momentum oscillators, and we'll go look at expected moves. 4-hour Stokes coming down. By the way, let's go check out what reverse Stokes cross would say as far as turning these back up to the upside. We need to go back above 73.68 on a 4-hour total closing basis in order to cross these back up to the upside. Definitely possible, and more or less aligns with the critical 7,400-ish region that I do have aligned to the upside as the next sort of breakout territory. Going over to the 3-hour, what do we see here? We do see it's probably going to be coming down. Oh, no, it's actually up right now. What would cause it to come back down? Bitcoin would have to close the next 3-hour dildo below 72.69 and a half, or spots 4 if you want to get super exact with it. So technically speaking, as long as we remain above there, still trying to flag out, or sorry, not flag out, but it looks to me like it's trying to create an ascending triangle on the lower term time frame. So, it's competing narrative. Short term time frames, bullish formation, medium and higher term time frames, a lot of skepticism. But again, those don't change around all that often. 2 hours, same point as the 4-hour, about 73.50, back up to the upside. For right now, it is down. We do see a trend line. You can just imagine a trend line right here already forming. So if it does come back down around, I'd look for it to probably bounce around here and give another try to the upside. So I don't think that Bitcoin's breaking down like right now. If we are going to see a fake out and then come down, it's first going to be it's very likely first to be followed by spurned by a quick move to the upside and then big close down. So if you see a big wick up and then closure down, that's a damn good sign here as we get very mature in this. For the hourly, same price point as well, 73.69. So we see very, very good confluence with all these low-term time frame momentum oscillators around our next breakout point to the upside. This has added an incredible layer to my game, and I can't thank Bally enough for his fucking ingenuity with this sort of thing. I would never even have thought of something like this, but he understands my style and myself, and he's so brilliant that he just will. He's like, hey, this might be useful for you. I'm like, yeah, actually, it's pretty fucking useful to me, man. Thanks. Thank you. And it's like, I really appreciate that. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, it's amazing. For a lot of people are asking where you can find this. You cannot find it publicly right now. I do think that Bally is considering releasing it, most likely for a subscription, but that's up to him. And, it's his code, it's his everything. So that's not, if you're coming to me for access, you're talking to the wrong person. And I'd also suggest maybe, not invading his inbox as well, because I do know that to be a little bit of an annoying type thing to do, especially when, you try to do your best on video and everything, and try to keep it clean. Anyways, okay, so yes, this area right here the reverse Stoke cross really helping confirm the relevancy of the 7,400-ish region. If Bitcoin gets back above it, all momentum oscillators will turn back up north. We will also have a clean break above this, what do you want to call this, a liquid zone? I suppose it's more of a liquid zone right now. If you go to the history, it should be an order block, and they are, they kind of operate in a very similar vein. So I really like that, and it would align with another move up all the way up here. In fact, because we are making an ascending triangle right now, we can make a measure move on that one as well. And just doing a little bit of an eyeball, it looks like it's going to be about a $200 move. If we force this one up to the upside right here, that point is right around about 7,700-ish region. So just just on the lower echelon of this blue box, I might not be doing it justice right there, but you get the idea, just for demonstration's sake. Okay, all right, and then also we can pull this back out one more step. For the relevancy of the upper 7,000, low $8,000 number, as looking at the 2-day dildo time frame right here, I do think that Bitcoin's a little bit of a ticking time bomb once again. If Bitcoin fails to really take a leg up today, above 7,400, at least on a lower term time frame basis, I actually do think that this is going to get a little bit anemic and we will come back down. So I do think that if there is going to be an up move, it very likely comes today, tomorrow, something like that, within this next 24 hours worth of period, as Bitcoin did close the 2-day back above the 21, and we have seen a very similar signature to this in the past, getting a death cross right in over here between the green 55 and the purple 200, which, by the way, even with Bitcoin's rally up here, have actually been gaining momentum away from each other, which is very important. And where do they come around? It comes around 7,750 on the low end and 7,900 on the high end. Well, why is that relevant? Well, the last few times that we've seen a death cross on this time frame in the past of Bitcoin was back on over here, green and purple crossing the downside. Bitcoin slowly but surely gets ground to the downside as these gain more and more momentum away from each other. Bitcoin tests the 55 right here perfectly and then gets ground down below the 21, at which point, boom, massive dooms drop to new lows, as you already know. The time before that we have an example was back on over here. This one very similar to what we're doing right now, I think, as Bitcoin gets a death cross right here, rather far away from price action. It is below the 21 at the same time, and then it kind of chops around it, regains the 21 right here, and gets catapulted up to test the 55 immediately, and also the 200 by happenstance, I do think. And then once it gets back down below the 21 on an open and close basis, massive dooms drop of, again, 50% to the downside occurs. And the same thing for 2018 drop as well. If we go back on over here, back after this next high to next low, about 51% drop right there as well. Anyways, right here, this looks rather similar. Death cross happens, price action very far away. Bitcoin regains the 21. Does it test the 55 as the last two times have implied? I think that's very much within the cards. And what would happen if we shaved off 50% from that price point? Just playing with numbers. Where would that put us around? It actually put us around $4,000 low, which is of interest because that is around, 30. I mean, if you take 50 versus 51% is going to be a massive difference, but it's actually going to put us back down around like 3,600-ish region, which is of interest as well because that is one of the gaps on the CME chart. So, if Bitcoin did get down around there, I would be looking for a big bad low to be put in, and I'm talking about this guy right here. Nice little gappy gap price action. I don't really think that this is like a huge one or anything like that. However, for all the gap boys who like to talk about the upside ones, well, you might as well mention the downside ones as well for a little bit of a sombering thought. So with that said, CMEs have actually just officially death crossed as of yesterday. Or sorry, they have not. They will on this next tick, which happens tonight at I believe they close at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So that is of interest as well. Although I wouldn't trust a death cross as much on CMEs. There's just not as much price action history here. And of course, these moving averages still, right around the $8,000 level. So I do think that Bitcoin, could very easily get a move back up there. I just would be cautious around that area. Anyways, what else do we want to look at while we are here? Why is my phone going crazy right now? Jesus Christ, man, this thing just doesn't stop. Come on, man. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, Jesus, man, too many fucking messages to deal with. I don't want to be an asshole to people who message me, but there are appropriate messages and there are inappropriate messages, and I trust you to decide for yourself. Anyways, let's go look at GBTC. GBTC undoing its. Actually, no, not undoing its inherent bearishness yesterday. Closing on a doji dildo after a bearish engulfing. I mean, this is just hard to read is what it is. Still living below, I think, the weekly 200. No, it's actually above right now. If it does want to take a leg up, could very easily test the 21 right here. Very, very easily, in fact. So again, I do think that there is a legitimate threat of an upside move. I would just be cautious within that region. And of course, this is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. Just sharing my thoughts on these markets as they come about. Let's go check out traditional markets now. Let's go check out Japan. How's Japan doing on the day? I think that they're more or less following world markets, but looking for some uppy up here, taking it back to the tippy top. Maybe not the tippy top, but maybe back around 20,000-ish even is what I'd be looking towards. DAX closing pretty much unched yesterday. A little bit of an up note following a doji-ish dildo right there. Is it reversal? Is it not? I think that U.S. markets are leading right now. Again, I understand that this sounds like, the arrogant, condescending American telling the rest of the world that the U.S. leads markets. Well, I understand, but to call a spade, U.S. typically leads, especially in times like this. And traditional markets look like they do want to look like, as I said yesterday, work their way up into the low 2800s or 280 if you're looking at just spot SPY. This is E mini futures right here, and a very, very good close yesterday. So a lot of people are probably faked out by the down close of the 6th. We said that no, that's not the time actually to get bearish until we actually really start to take out this area right here. Did not happen. In fact, that acted as a phenomenal support. We spoke about it yesterday on the Twitch stream, that it was likely to pop back up to the prior high and a little bit beyond, and that's what we're seeing right now. But you will notice a very similar chart here to what we see in Bitcoin. So I would be looking for these guys to more or less act the same. And what do you know? We have the same sort of formation going on as well. Actually, this is not working out. I'm just making fucking finger paintings right now. It's what it looks like to me. Maybe something a little bit more like this, an ascending broadening wedge. Still a distribution pattern. I do think that this is going to take another leg up, probably towards the low 280s for E mini, which is probably going to put spot, or not spot, but SPY somewhere around, probably somewhere around, just 10 divisible by that. So yeah, I do think that it's on a collision course for the 55. I would look for a short-term pullback right there, and then we'll come back and reassess to see if this rally has more to it. A lot of people are asking, why is traditional markets rallying right now when all of the news in the sphere is pretty negative? Well, the problem is that, well, not the problem, but the idea is, and what people need to understand about traditional markets is that they are not pricing in today's action. They're pricing in 30 years of price action. So naturally, the low for the stock market will happen much before, maybe not much before, but a decent amount before, a couple months perhaps before the actual worst of the epidemic or pandemic or whatever the fuck you call it occurs. And this was the same thing in 2008, 2009. The worst of the markets, the worst of the reports were coming in like 2 to 3 months later after the bottom was actually put in. And that's why. That's why this is going to be pricing in 30 years worth of price action, not just today, tomorrow, the next day. So really have to keep an all-encompassing view. And that brings me back to kind of my opening statements on Bitcoin. It's like I really need to be careful with how I talk about this short-term, medium-term, and long-term, because this gets massively misheard. And I think that maybe intrinsically. People might not know that knowledge, but that is the way that markets typically operate. Looking over here at spot, pretty damn good close to the upside yesterday. I do have a nice horizon wedge in here as well, although I do think it's going to have a chance to break to the upside here today. However, I will look for an initial pullback, perhaps back down to about 267.5. But if it can take out, well, this is where it gets a little bit diabolic. There's not really any obvious areas here. Maybe if we're talking about not yesterday's, but the days before that high, right around the 7th of April at 275 and 3 cents. If we do take out that eye, I would look for an extension all the way to 283-ish region. And I would look for a pullback there, and we'll come back and reassess after that. And for the downside, I really don't get bearish on this until it takes out the same thing as yesterday, really. I need to see it take out the 7th low at 264 spot 89, and I look for a test all the way back down to the lower end of this support right here. If it actually breaks this lower end of the support at 258 region, which I don't think it would do on the first pass. I think it'd probably bounce it on the first pass. But if it were to break it, then I look for a full-on extension all the way down here to the 235 to 240-ish region. And I actually, the more that I look at traditional markets, the more that I do think that it potentially could have bottomed. And at the very least, this rally up will assuming that Friday closes above 265, 266, we'll get another extension, over the next coming weeks, all the way to like 280, 290-ish region. But that's obviously, contingent upon the week's close. And again, now I'm kind of mixing up short-term and long-term analysis. So please be cognizant of that. Before you leave a condescending comment, sir. Anyways, so obviously speaking to someone in the fucking comments, it's like sometimes I make the mistake of just reading the comments, and it's like 99% of them are massively positive, and I want to be grateful for it, but for whatever reason, man, it's just like, whatever. I should just leave the topic. Who cares? Okay, cool. All right. So looking at the weekly right here. The weekly actually has some airtime, especially if we can confirm a close above 266. I would look for an extension coming in the next couple of weeks. Would look pretty damn good. 285 to 290 would be the proverbial targets, I suppose. Maybe even all the way up to $300. So yeah. What else are we looking at on the lower term time frames? No, I don't see too much of interest on the lower term timeframes there. What about ES mini futures? ES mini futures look a little bit more like they want to pop back down to about 2670-ish region. And I do think that traditional markets, SPY will pull back to around the same number as well. Doesn't really imply anything for me though. Just kind of playing out, technically still playing out the rising wedge, if you want to call it that, which does have a lot better hit degree in traditional markets. So if that were to happen, I'd look for Bitcoin to come back down to 7,100 as well. But realistically, I don't have a strong opinion on that. I only have a strong opinion on which way it breaks this area, because it's so mature within this region now that to front run a decision could be it's just unnecessary. There's so much edge on this next trade to the upside or the downside that a little bit of patience, going from yesterday to today is likely going to do a lot of good. Now, of course, you could get a better entry by, a couple $100, but what's a couple $100 when you're looking for a decent sized move? And again, we're traders here, not fucking moon boys who, just hodl no matter what, I guess. Do we want to look at Nasdaq really quick? We could look at Nasdaq really quick. Decent enough close yesterday. I do think that this is going to get another try to the upside. Probably a small pullback to start the day at like 8,200, and then realistically, this one actually looks the best of the bunch. I do think if we can take out the 7th of April high at 83.05, I would look for a big move up, actually all the way up towards 86.50-ish region overall over the next few days or weeks, whatever it ends up being. Looking at the weekly though, we do have a problem here. So there is a competing narrative from the higher term timeframes. That's why it's contingent upon the low term timeframes taking out this high right here. If it can do it, looks good. If it can't, then I'd look for it to pop back down in line with SPY at the very least to 8,000 even, and that's going to start to look a lot more like redistribution. So we're at a really critical point right now, and I do believe that U.S. markets are going to more or less lead it. So probably going to be a quiet day until U.S. markets open back up again. Until then, you got Bitcoin to look at, which is probably going to go sideways, and gold, which I think is the most interesting of the bunch. This one is one of the few. Hey, Elsa, could you close the door, please? These people are fucking using like jackhammers or some shit. It's like, you don't need to. Hey, fuckface. Don't need to do that. It's too early, man. It's 8. Jesus, man. Anyways, gold is the one thing that is looking more or less interesting as far. Oh, nice. They're actually stopping. It's great. Nope, they're not. All right. Well, there goes that. Anyways, gold did hit our target back up towards almost 1,700, hit up to 1,675. So maybe not exactly there. Pretty good though. I do think it's going to get another chance again today. More or less, my analysis for the past few days stay the same. As long as we're above 1,600, I do look at this as likely to get some more bullish continuation. It's the monthly that I do like. Phenomenal. I wouldn't say phenomenal close last month, but it does offer up potential for continuation for long term. Especially if we take out last month's high at 1,700 even, I would look for extension all the way to 1,800 essentially, or 1,776, the year that America was started. Was that the year that America was started? Or was it 16? Whatever, man. Whatever. No, not whatever. Anyways, or a daily close above 1680. Both look good to me, and I'll be looking for extension overall over the next month or two up to about 1800, and that'll look more or less good. By the same token, daily close below, let's call it 1590, and I get bearish for move all the way back down to about 1500ish region. But the upside looks a little more likely here to me. Once again. What else do we want to look at? Let's look at Bitcoin dominance. I did promise to look at that, and then we'll look at. Oh my God, it's 42 minutes into this bitch. Whoa! Hey, what happened there? This is why you don't trade. This is why I don't trade altcoins. Okay, so Krown. Oh, actually, no. This is in line with what I was saying. So I did say that Bitcoin dominance was very likely to come down short term, but to very deliberately differentiate short-term between long-term, I do think that this is actually a reaccumulation formation here. We're looking at a descending Brownian wedge, and I do think it's probably going to come a little bit lower, maybe all the way down to like 64 even. So I think that this move still probably has a little bit more to go, but after that, I look for a bounce, and long term, I'm actually massively bullish on this, especially if it can take out this high right here at 68%. I look for a big bad move all the way back up into the deep 70%, and alt's going to get absolutely fucking cream pie. It's going to be a boo cake party, left, right, and center, and I would pour one out for all the altcoin hodlers out there. No, not my Cardano's, not again. How could I get skied on for 3 years straight? They told me this shit was going to make me rich. And now I'm rich in Cardano's, but I'm buying more. Hashtag DCA, hashtag perseverance, hashtag inspiration. It's like altcoin haulers have turned into like fitness inspiration people, but with altcoins. It's like, if you don't hodl through a bear market, then do you really deserve a bull market? No, not really. It doesn't work like that, man. It doesn't. You don't get rewarded for fucking holding a downwards asset. This one seems to be creating a range on the low zone. So probably another try to the upside, probably another try to the downside. But now we have a pretty easy way to be managing this one long term. If this one ever were to break back above, I'm not saying it's going to break back above, but if it ever were to break back above 700 satoshis, that'd be a damn good indication that this baby actually is going to go all the way to 900, and Bitcoin's probably even lower by that point. So you're going to lose even more US dollars. What about Mr. Buterol? Mr. Buterol looking like he wants to test some upside as well. Anywhere around $190 to $200. If it does get some nice airtime here, it actually has been leading the charge. And for the downside, as long as it remains above 165 on a closing basis, I do still think momentum remains to the upside. Gonna be confined by Bitcoin's moves more or less. Litecoin, same thing. A little bit more overhead resistance, though, not as strong. It seems to me that Buterol is leading the charge here. Support to the downside, 41. Resistance to the upside, 46.5. Whichever one breaks first, going to be the next direction. If breaks the upside, I look for a move to 49-ish. If it breaks to the downside, I look for a move towards, whenever Bitcoin stops moving, about like $42 probably overall. Back on to Bitcoin. Let's wrap this pitch up. I didn't even look at probabilities. Let's actually just look at it really, really quickly here for the daily. For the daily, if we take, price target for upside and downside are going to be a lot different now, though. Upside probability is still going to be 7,400, so that is 45%. Downside, though, we could actually move this to, 7,000 for the more proximal downside. If we do keep it at 67, though, it would be 26.25, so both are relatively high. But if we do move it a little bit up towards the $7,000 region, then 38.25%. So both moves are pretty damn likely. These bands are starting to squeeze the upside, as I did say was likely yesterday. So I do think that Bitcoin's going to at the very least try again to the upside, and then we'll judge it after that. So I do think that that's a good place to let go of this baby. Let me go back on over here actually. Pretty much the same thing as yesterday. This is now way too small. My blue boxes have collapsed on each other. Sorry about that. 7,000 to the downside, 7,400 to the upside. To the downside, I'd look for a quick move towards 6,650 to 6,700. To the upside, I'd look for likely a move towards 7,750 to 8,000-ish region, somewhere around here. Would be very defensive against a fake out. If you see a quick up plus close below, not going to be interpreted well, at least by myself, and I think that's a good place to leave it off. So I'd like to wish you well once again. It's time for me to go eat a shit ton of steak, maybe do a little bit of working out, and then it's Twitch time, baby. And oh, do I have a surprise for you, because I actually just downloaded the biggest fucking mod of all time, and it makes the game even more enjoyable. So with that said, take care, and until next time, I am signing out now, and I don't know, what else do I say? Have a good one.